The Central Bureau of Investigation has been granted permission to conduct a polygraph test on Dr. Sandeep Ghosh and 4 trainee doctors in the Arjikar gang rape and murder case. This comes as a big development for the central agency just a day after the Supreme Court of India heavily came down on the Mamata government and her administration for mishandling the case. The Supreme Court criticized Kolkata police for a disturbing 14-hour delay in registering the case and directed both the central and the state governments to ensure the safety of healthcare professionals across the country. Viewers, we have Gopi joining us live from outside the CBI premises. Gopi, could you tell us, as the updates we hear is that Dr. Sandeep Ghosh and 4 other trainee doctors will be subjected to the polygraph test. The CBI has made the statement. So what is the timeline that we're expecting and what developments can we expect after the polygraph test?
Well, in fact, Priyanka, good morning to you as well as to the viewers. Today is the day when the polygraph test, which is the lie detector test, would be done on Sanjay Ghosh, who happens to be the prime accused, as well as the 4 others who were with the victim for dinner before this incident had happened. So the timeline, tentative timeline that what we are learning from our sources is before 5 p.m. in fact, we would be having the polygraph test results in our hand, and this in fact is going to help to understand the baseline questioning. The repeated questioning that happens in the lie detector test would make sure that there won't be any anomalies or inconsistencies in the type of answers that Sanjay Roy has been giving since so long. Now, just to bring things in perspective, it was on August 19 that the CBI had got permission to undergo a polygraph test of these 5 prime people who are involved in this case. One happens to be the prime accused, while on the Calcutta High Court decision would in fact come only after this lie detector test results are out. So what we are expecting today is the lie detector test, the polygraph test results would be out before 5 p.m. This is what we are learning from our sources. Back to you, Priyanka.
Thank you, Gopi, for the updates. Viewers, we're tracking this horrific case and we're bringing in all the angles possibly that's been explored. And we'll bring it. At the time when people across the country are on the streets for women's security in light of the gruesome rape and murder of a junior doctor at Kolkata's Arjikar hospital, a video clip has gone viral showing a woman being brutally assaulted on a street in full public glare. The clip shockingly shows the bikers and motorists passing by seemingly indifferent to the assault on the woman in Uttar Pradesh's Badaun district. Here's a report. Take a look.
Amid the massive countrywide outrage and public campaign against the horrific Arjikar rape and murder case, another bone-chilling incident has come to light. A video clip has gone viral showing a woman being savagely beaten in full public glare on a busy street in Badaun in Uttar Pradesh. The viral clip shows a man raining blows on a woman even as she wails and begs to be let off. What's worse is that bikers and motorists are seen passing by, seemingly unmoved by the plight of the victim as she is viciously assaulted. The incident raises serious questions on women's safety at a time the country has erupted over the brutal rape and murder of a junior doctor at Kolkata's Arjikar Medical College. Significantly, the incident has come to light on a day when Yogi's bulldozer rolled again to raze another property owned by the accused SP leader in the Ayodhya gang rape case, Moeed Khan. Even as echoes for justice for the Arjikar victim rings out from the far corners of the country, The Badayu assault has yet again brought to the fore the shocking indifference to crimes against women.
A devastating fire triggered by a reactor explosion at a pharma company in Andhra Pradesh has claimed the lives of at least 17 workers and left 20 others injured. The blast occurred in a special economic zone where the company manufactures intermediate chemicals and pharmaceutical ingredients. 10 fire engines and 2 National Disaster Response Force teams have responded, rescuing the workers trapped on the 3rd floor.
At least 17 workers lost their lives and 20 others suffered severe burn injuries after a powerful reactor explosion caused a massive fire at Essentia Advanced Sciences Private Limited in Achyutapuram, Andhra Pradesh. The explosion, which occurred during 2:15 p.m. during a shift change, sent shockwaves through the 4-story building, reducing parts of it to rubble. The impact of the explosion was so intense that severed body parts were scattered across the premises. Fire tenders from Visakhapatnam and nearby pharma units, along with 2 NDRF teams, were immediately deployed to combat the flames and rescue the trapped. Several workers on the 3rd floor were safely brought out. However, fears remain that more bodies are trapped under the debris. Chief Minister N. Chandrababu Naidu, visibly shaken by the tragedy, has ordered a high-level inquiry into the incident.
ఇష్యూ జరిగిన తర్వాత ఇంతమంది చనిపోయిన తర్వాత ప్రమోటర్ ఎవరైతే ఫ్యాక్టరీ పెట్టాడో he should have come. That is his responsibility, fundamental duty. రాకుండా ఎక్కడుండే ప్లాంట్ మేనేజర్కి అప్పచెప్పేసి వెళ్ళిపోయే పరిస్థితికి వచ్చాడు. ఇంతవరకు మా అడ్మినిస్ట్రేషన్ కూడా టచ్లోకి రాలేదు. అది కరెక్ట్ అప్రోచ్ కాదు. నాకు ఇండస్ట్రీస్ రావాలి.
He visited the hospital to meet the injured workers and their families, assuring them of all possible support. Essentia Advanced Sciences Private Limited, spread over 40 acres and set up with a rupees 200 crore budget, has been manufacturing pharmaceutical ingredients since 2019. The incident has cast a shadow over the industrial zone, raising serious concerns about safety protocols and handling of hazardous materials. In this moment of grief, the state government has assured swift action and support to the affected families. The entire region is on high alert, and all eyes are now on the investigation that will follow this tragic incident.
Well, in an unfortunate incident in Achyutapuram's special economic zone, where we see that there was a recreator blast which had taken place in the pharmaceutical company's factory there, where we see that the workers there who were working had got severely injured, and also what we are being now told is that near about 17 workers have lost their life in this incident, and near about 40 workers are still undergoing treatment at the hospital. Meanwhile, what we have been also learning is that TDP chief and also the Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister N. Chandrababu Naidu has visited the hospital. He has met the injured there who are undergoing treatment at the hospital for a thorough investigation into this matter, and also he says that further investigation will be done into this matter so that no untoward situation takes place in near future. This is Anirisha with visual listeners for Republic TV.
India will celebrate its first space. Aniri, thank you for those inputs. Could you also, Aniri, thank you for the updates that you're bringing in live from Anakapalli. So could you tell us, you've also mentioned that potential more people who have been trapped in the building. So what is the status on that? What information do you have from the National Disaster Relief Team?
Well, what we have been seeing is that now all the people have been rescued from the site, and also at the same time what we are being told is that 17 people lost their life, and now near about 30 people are undergoing treatment. Some of them who have got small injuries have already been moved to their particular residences. But also at the same time, when we talk about the Chief Minister's visit to the Anakapalli, to Achyutapuram Achutapuram Special Economic Zone where this incident had taken place. The Chief Minister has reviewed all the places, and also he has now formed a committee to particularly inquire into this matter. And also at the same time, what Chandrababu Naidu happens to say is that yes, definitely industries are very important for this development of the state, for empowerment of the state, but then also the industrialists and also the companies should take the owners and also have to maintain all the status quo, and also all the security measures, safety measures have to be maintained by the industrialists, is what Chandrababu Naidu has appealed to the industries. And now, after this particular incident, yes, a committee has been formed to inquire into this matter, and also further investigation will be taken up, whereas the government has also announced an ex gratia to the deceased families and also to the one who are undergoing treatment at the hospital. So 17 people have died in this particular incident which has taken place in the Achutapuram Special Economic Zone, and near about 30 are undergoing treatment at the hospital. Everyone has been rescued from the site where the incident had taken place.
Thank you, Aneri, for those updates. Definitely, the state government and the central government needs to also apprise of the situation and take better security measures in terms of the industry bodies that are gaining momentum. Thank you. The Jammu and Kashmir Assembly polls are all set to kick off with the first phase beginning on 18th of September. With the polls nearing closer, the political tussle seems to be on the rise. Here's a report. Take a look.
The Jammu and Kashmir Assembly polls, which will be conducted in 3 phases, is all set to kick off. In the first phase, 24 assembly segments, both in Jammu and Kashmir, will go to the polls on September 18th. This will be the first election in J&K since the abrogation of Article 370 in August 2019, which stripped the region of its special status and split it into 2 union territories. The BJP is in a huddle.
We are always prepared, and when we talk about the workers of Bharatiya Janata Party, we are among not those parties who are seasonal workers and they come into play only when Chunav and all those things are there. But when we talk about Bharatiya Janata Party, our Karyakarta, you will find 24/7 by 365 working on the grounds. Same was the story when it was Corona period also. Maximum number of sacrifices somebody has given, that is given only from Bharatiya Janata Party. We are prepared, and we are anticipating that very soon you will find a Chief Minister of Bharatiya Janata Party in Jammu and Kashmir. With full majority, we are going to win this election.
According to top sources, the BJP is all set to finalize the list of names going to contest the J&K assembly polls today. The panel for each assembly of every constituency is likely to the BJP headquarters. The final call will be taken by BJP's National Election Committee that will be headed by PM Narendra Modi. Ram Madhav is likely to chair a key meeting. There is a high chance that 30 to 40% of the candidates will be replaced by fairly younger candidates. BJP Jammu and Kashmir President Ravinder Raina is likely to contest from the traditional Nowsera seat. Meanwhile, party's J&K General Secretary Sunil Sharma will most likely try his luck from the Pader Nagseni seat.
Jammu and Kashmir is all politically decked up for the first assembly polls post-abrogation of Article 370 and 35 alpha. From the manifesto to the names of the candidates, the deliberations are on. From the BJP to National Conference to PDP to the Congress Party, all are holding back-to-back meetings. The meetings are for the alliance or to ensure that they contest with the support of the independents. But one thing is very clear, that the political atmosphere in the Jammu is all charged up, as well as in the Kashmir Valley, as the top leaders from the national capital as well as from the other states, they are visiting the union territory and also holding series of meetings to finalize the names as the parties gear up to form the government in the first polls post-abrogation of Article 370 and 35 alpha.
Kharge and Rahul are camping in Srinagar, and the party has announced that its doors are open for anyone fighting against the BJP.
जम्मू और कश्मीर के लोगों को और हिंदुस्तान के हर स्टेट के लोगों को मैसेज देना चाहते हैं कि हमारे लिए जम्मू और कश्मीर के लोगों का रिप्रेजेंटेशन, उनका स्टेटहुड सबसे ज़रूरी चीज़ है।
Meanwhile, National Conference Party and Congress have sealed a pre-poll alliance for the upcoming assembly elections. Minutes after the announcement, the BJP has made a strong claim.
कांग्रेस और नेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस को भारतीय जनता पार्टी का डर सता रहा है। डॉक्टर फारूक अब्दुल्ला साहब और श्री राहुल गांधी जी, श्री खड़गे साहब भारतीय जनता पार्टी की ज़बरदस्त लहर जो जम्मू कश्मीर में है उससे डर गए हैं। डर के कारण, हार के भय के कारण श्री राहुल गांधी जी, श्री खड़गे साहब और श्री फारूक अब्दुल्ला ने आपस में जम्मू कश्मीर में गठबंधन का फैसला किया है।
जिन्ना कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के अंदर छोड़ते क्या बताना चाहिए। राहुल गांधी लाल चौक पे जाके रात में खाना खाया, किसका देन है, किसके कारण वो इतने रात में जा सके। नरेंद्र मोदी सरकार 10 साल से जो काम किया है इसके कारण से आज लाल चौक में जाते हैं, सिस्टर के साथ मिलके जो फड़े में घूमते हैं।
With only few weeks left, all eyes are now on the crucial Jammu and Kashmir elections.
Welcome back, viewers. Thank you for tuning in to Republic TV, where we bring you the latest updates from across the world. First up, we have the popular Tamil actor Thalai Vijay unveiling the flag and symbol for his political party, Tamizhaga Vetri Kazhagam. This comes as a major development in the regional political dynamics of Tamil Nadu. Here's a report. Take a closer look.
From the big screens to the political arena, Thalai Vijay gets ready for his second innings as a politician. The Tamil superstar unveiled the flag and symbol of his political party, Tamizhaga Vetri Kazhagam. Vijay hoisted the flag at the Panayur party office and also released an official song for his party. The two-coloured maroon and yellow flag has elephants on both sides and a peacock surrounded by stars at the centre. In February, Vijay had announced the launch of Tamizhaga Vetri Kazhagam. The actor turned politician had also earlier said that he would be contesting the 2026 assembly election in Tamil Nadu. The AIDMK extended their best wishes to Thalai Vijay on this new journey.
We extend our hearty wishes and we welcome Vijay to active politics. In a democracy, anybody who has an intent to serve the people on the country can be in politics. In those lines, Mr. Vijay has taken his first step by releasing the party flag. We welcome him and wish him good luck. Prince Udaynidhi, who is awaiting to be crowned in DMK, the entire bandwagon of DMK is rattled with Vijay's this hoisting flag and the next step towards public life. So the DMK unit is not happy. However, we heartily wish Vijay, we welcome him.
Notably, his party did not align with any political bloc in recently concluded 2024 Lok Sabha elections. According to the sources, the flag reveal will follow a massive rally in the last week of September to formally launch the party in the eyes of the public in Tamil Nadu. The registration of the party under the Election Commission is at an advanced stage and is likely to be completed soon. Over 300 workers of TVK as well as members of Vijay's fan club were invited for the event. The actor taking his first steps in the political arena exuded confidence of winning the 2026 assembly elections. Can his fame reap political dividends? That's the big question.
Superstar Tamil actor Vijay has officially launched his political outfit, Tamizhaga Vetri Kazhagam's flag as well as the anthem for the party. The launch was done at the party headquarters in Chennai today, and actor Vijay, while addressing the members of the party, had stated that the time has come for those who have been working on an individual basis to work collectively for the betterment of the people of Tamil Nadu.
The U.S. Defense Department has confirmed that a second aircraft carrier, the USS Abraham Lincoln, has been deployed to the Middle East. The movement of the Abe into the CENTCOM AOR was directed by Secretary Austin earlier this month. This was done as part of broad adjustments to U.S. military posture in the region designed to improve U.S. force protection. This move comes as Iran threatens retaliation against Israel following the assassination of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran.
So as you saw yesterday, U.S. Central Command announced that the USS Abraham Lincoln, equipped with F-35C aircraft, entered the CENTCOM area of responsibility. The movement of the Abe into the CENTCOM AOR was directed by Secretary Austin earlier this month as part of broad adjustments to U.S. military posture in the region designed to improve U.S. force protection.
Republican presidential candidate J.D. Vance has criticized Kamala Harris on crime and border security during a campaign visit to Georgia with his running mate. The GOP is targeting battleground states to shift attention from Democrats' celebration of Harris's presidential nomination in Chicago. Vance stated that it is interesting that they're running and trying to pretend to be tough on crime people.
The headlines: Brian Kemp and Donald Trump have had some disagreements. I am 100% guarantee you that Brian Kemp is behind this ticket. He wants us to win because he believes the policies of Kamala Harris are disastrous for this country, and he's exactly right about that.
Intense shelling broke out between Israel and Hezbollah along the Israel-Lebanon border. Smoke was rising from the Qiyam town, which was heavily shelled by Israel. In response, Hezbollah struck the Israeli border town of Metula, which is near Lebanon. For over 10 months, Israel and Hezbollah have been exchanging strikes amid Israel's ongoing conflict with the Hamas, an ally of Hezbollah. Israeli ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, criticized the organization that the UN failed to acknowledge the victims of the October 7 Hamas attack. He pointed out that despite the UN marking the International Day of Remembrance for Victims of Terror, there was no mention of Israeli victims in the UN's exhibit, suggesting that the events of October 7 were overlooked.
Yesterday, the UN marked the International Day of Remembrance for Victims of Terror. However, if you walked around the UN's exhibit, you would not have found a single tribute to an Israeli victim. Apparently, someone forgot what happened on October 7th. How morally bankrupt can this organization be to ignore Israeli victims just 10 months after one of the largest and most horrific terror attacks in history, to pretend they never existed?
Venezuela's Supreme Court has supported President Nicolás Maduro's claim that he won last month's presidential election and said the online voting results showing the loss were falsified. This ruling is part of Maduro's effort to address the protests and international criticism following the disputed July 28 vote, where he was running for a third term. The High Court, known for its support of Maduro, rarely disagrees with the government. The decision, announced Thursday at an event with top officials and diplomats, responded to Maduro's request to review the vote totals, which he claimed, without evidence, were affected by a foreign cyber attack from North Macedonia. Russian President Vladimir Putin held a call with local governors to discuss the situation in regions bordering Ukraine. Alexei Smirnov, the acting governor of Kursk, reported that more than 1 lakh Russian President Vladimir Putin held a call with local governors to discuss the situation in regions bordering Ukraine. Alexei Smirnov, the acting governor of Kursk, reported that more than regions bordering Ukraine, more than 133,000 people have been evacuated from conflict-affected areas. Bahrain's Governor Alexander Bogomas informed Putin about the emergency evacuation training conducted for border areas. During the call, Putin claimed that Ukraine had attempted to strike the Kursk nuclear power plant and noted that Moscow has notified the IAEA, expecting the agency to send experts to evaluate the situation. Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani met with Saudi Foreign Minister Faisal bin Farhan al Saud in Baghdad. According to a statement from al-Sudani's office, they discussed the political and economic aspects of the relationship between Iraq and Saudi Arabia. They also reviewed the recent regional developments and the impact of ongoing aggression in Gaza. The Canadian government has ordered Canada's two main freight railroads to settle their labour dispute through arbitration. After the deadline passed, Canadian National and CPKC locked out their workers. Once arbitration begins, the railroads say trains will start running again.
In the current collective bargaining negotiations between Canadian National Railway, Canadian Pacific Kansas City, and the Teamsters Canada Rail Conference, an agreement has so far proven elusive. After months of negotiations, CN Rail and CPKC began lockouts while Teamsters Canada rail workers at CPKC went on strike at 12:01 a.m. this morning. These collective bargaining negotiations belong to these parties.
After completing the first leg of his two-nation visit, Prime Minister Modi departed for Kyiv for Warsaw. Following the talks with Polish leadership that saw the elevation of India-Poland ties to the level of strategic partnership, Prime Minister Modi will hold one-on-one and delegation-level talks with President Zelensky of the war-torn Ukraine. Ahead of his visit, Prime Minister Modi said no solutions can come from the battlefield and that India is ready to provide all possible cooperation for restoration of peace. Here's a report of PM's two-nation visit. Take a look.
Prime Minister Modi, on his two-nation trip to Poland and Ukraine, has concluded the first leg of his visit. PM's Poland visit was marked by talks with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk that saw the elevation of India-Poland ties to the level of strategic partnership. A social security pact to promote the mobility of skilled workers was also strengthened. Taking to X, the Prime Minister said the visit gave him an opportunity to deepen cooperation with a valued friend. The Prime Minister last night left from Warsaw to Kyiv. PM's visit to Ukraine comes just 6 weeks after his Russia tour as the war has entered its third year. The Indian diaspora in Kyiv is eager to welcome Prime Minister Modi. In his nearly 7-hour stay in Kyiv today, Modi will hold one-on-one and delegation-level talks with Zelensky. The conversation is expected to largely focus on finding ways to resolve the conflict in Ukraine. Ahead of his visit to Ukraine, PM said India is ready to extend all possible cooperation to restore peace. Prime Minister has reiterated that India firmly believes that no problem can be solved on the battlefield.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi is preparing for a meeting with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. This visit follows Modi's recent visit to Poland, where he underscored the urgent need for peace amid the escalating tensions.
After Prime Minister Narendra Modi's recent visit to Poland, he is all set to meet Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. Modi's visit to Ukraine is primarily aimed at facilitating peace talks, reflecting India's push for a resolution amidst escalating tensions. His recent call for a return to peace highlights the urgency of his mission as he prepares for this significant engagement in Ukraine. With the war intensifying, Modi's stance remains clear. This is not the time for war. India has long been a proponent of peace, and Modi's current efforts align with this enduring commitment. During his visit to Poland, the Prime Minister once again emphasized the need for peace amidst the ongoing conflict.
साथियों, भारत बुद्ध की विरासत वाली धरती है। और जब बुद्ध की बात आती है, तो जो युद्ध नहीं, शांति पर विश्वास करती है। इसलिए भारत इस रीजन में भी स्थायी शांति का एक बड़ा पैरोकार है। भारत का मत एकदम साफ है, ये युद्ध का युग नहीं है।
This message was reinforced during his visit to Russia, where he directly urged President Vladimir Putin, saying, "Today's era is not of war."
ऐतिहासिक मित्र के नाते मैंने हमेशा कहा है कि हमारी भावी पीढ़ी के उज्जवल भविष्य के लिए शांति सर्वाधिक आवश्यक है। लेकिन मैं ये भी जानता हूं कि युद्ध के मैदान में समाधान संभव नहीं होते। बम, बंदूक और गोलियों के बीच समाधान और शांति वार्ताएं सफल नहीं होती हैं और हमने वार्ता के माध्यम से ही शांति के रास्ते अपनाने होंगे।
India's foreign policy, rooted in promoting global peace, continues to garner respect on the international stage. Let's not forget, 2 years ago, in his address to the US Congress, Modi reiterated the need for peace in times of global unrest.
As I have said directly and publicly, this is not an era of war. But it is one of dialogue and diplomacy. And we all must do what we can to stop the bloodshed and human suffering. Countries of the global south have been particularly affected. The global order is based on the respect for the principle of the UN Charter, peaceful resolution of disputes, and respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity.
As Modi's diplomatic endeavors progress, they could be pivotal in shaping future negotiations and reinforcing India's role as a global leader.
The conflict between Israel and Hezbollah has intensified with heavy shelling exchanged across the Israel-Lebanon border. Villages are caught in the crossfire as large plumes of smoke rise over Qiyam town, heavily targeted by the Israeli forces.
Heavy shelling took place between Israeli forces and Hezbollah in villages along the Israeli-Lebanon border. Large plumes of smoke rose in Qiyam town following Israeli shelling. The town has been heavily targeted by Israeli forces. Hezbollah announced that in retaliation for Israeli strikes on southern villages, they targeted buildings used by Israeli soldiers in Methulah with precise weaponry. The ongoing conflict has seen daily exchanges of fire for over 10 months amid Israel's war against Hamas. These clashes have resulted in over 500 fatalities in Lebanon. Around 100 civilians, 23 soldiers, and 26 civilians in Israel have died. The exchange of fire between Israel and Hezbollah continues to escalate, contributing to a mounting death toll and heightened tensions in the region.
The First World Food Programme aid trucks have finally crossed into the embattled Darfur region of Sudan, bringing critical relief to communities on the brink of famine. The border had been closed for 6 months by Sudan's governing council, which is led by top military generals, forcing the WFP to use long and dangerous routes that cross battlefront lines and through areas controlled by various militia groups.
In a massive relief to the war-torn and famine-struck region of Sudan, a convoy of World Food Programme aid trucks successfully crossed the Adar border from Chad into Sudan's Darfur region. For 6 months, this border remained closed under orders from Sudan's ruling military council, forcing humanitarian agencies to take perilous detours through conflict zones.
These trucks are the first in months to cross from Chad into Sudan at the Adre border post. And this is a very good news because this corridor is the easiest and the fastest for humanitarian aid to reach populations in critical need in Darfur.
Sudan has spiraled into chaos since April last year, when fighting erupted between the military and the rapid support forces. Over 25 million people, both within Sudan and those fleeing the conflict, are now on the brink of starvation. The United Nations reports that the brutal conflict has claimed over 14,000 lives and injured 33,000 more, though activists fear the true toll may be far higher. As aid finally reaches the desperate communities of Darfur, this relief brings a glimmer of hope in a nation torn apart by war. While the reopening of the Adre border marks a crucial breakthrough, the humanitarian crisis in Sudan is far from over. With millions still in need of urgent assistance, the world watches as Sudan teeters on the brink of famine.
A Lahore court has extended the detention of a suspect accused of spreading misinformation that led to violent riots in the UK earlier this month. Farhan Asif, a freelance web developer, faces charges of cyber terrorism after allegedly sharing false information that inflamed tensions and sparked attacks. Asif appeared in court today amid tight security, with the court granting an additional 4 days of custody for further questioning by the Federal Investigation Agency. Our report has more details. Take a look.
A Lahore court has decided to extend the detention of Farhan Asif, a 32-year-old freelance web developer. Asif is at the center of a case that has drawn international attention after he allegedly spread misinformation leading to riots in the United Kingdom. The Federal Investigation Agency had requested a 2-week extension to question Asif. However, the court granted them only 4 days. The decision follows a previous court order that had already allowed the FIA to question Asif for 1 day. Rana Rizwan, Asif's lawyer, expressed frustration, stating that the court's decision was rushed and unlawful.
This case is about cybercrime. Our client Farhan Asif, which is charged under Section 9 and 10A of PICA Act 2016. Proceeding was very poor because in our absence, Judge Sahab given 4-day remand to FIA, which is very unlawful. Our client is very innocent and normal citizen of Pakistan. He unintentionally shared a tweet news of X account, which is channel of UK.
Asif was arrested from his house in Lahore and has been accused of sharing false information about a stabbing attack in northwest England. This misinformation claimed that the suspect in the attack was an asylum seeker, which further fueled attacks on a mosque. Asif remains in custody as investigations continue.
Floodwaters have wreaked havoc across northeastern India and eastern Bangladesh, leaving at least 15 people dead and thousands displaced. As the waters continue to rise, rescuers are struggling to reach those in need. Take a look at this report.
Relentless floodwaters have transformed villages into submerged wastelands. These are the visuals from Bangladesh. Sudden breach of a dam has sent torrents of water streaming through homes and fields, leaving destruction in its wake. Listen into this villager from Habiganj describe the dire situation.
আমরা বাড়ি কত ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত মধ্যে আছি পুষ্মিতে মাছ আসছিল সব চলে গেছে বন্যার বাড়ির লোকে অনেক ঘর ঘর বিরত হয়ে গেছে রাস্তাঘাট সব ছিঁড়িবিড়ি তস্ত হয়ে গেছে.
In another village, Noakhali, the story remains unchanged. People wade through the floodwater, their daily lives upended by the rising waters.
বলে রান্না বান্না করতে পারে না এখন আমরা কি করেন কোনটা কমই যান এখন অনেক লোক মনে করে বাসা বাড়ি ছাড়ি দিয়ে মনে করে বাসা ভাড়া চলে যাইতেছে পরিস্থিতি মনে করে ভয়াবহ খারাপ
Rescue teams are navigating the treacherous conditions to assist those in need. Look how many try to salvage their belongings from inundated homes. Efforts are underway to provide aid, but the challenges are immense. Communication is cut off in many areas, complicating rescue efforts and leaving many stranded without help. Meanwhile, in India, India's meteorological department issued a red alert in Tripura, forcing authorities to announce a 2-day closure of schools after heavy rains inundated several regions, including the state's capital, Agartala.
कल पूरा दिन इतना बारिश हुआ इस बारिश के कारण ये हमारा जो मेन रिवर है अगरतला का हावड़ा रिवर वो पूरा तरीके से भर गया है और ये ओवरफ्लो होके वो आसपास वाले इलाके को पूरा फ्लडेड कर दिया
স্কুলের আমরা সব দাঁড়িয়ে আছি এখানে যেতে পারছি না ন্যাশনাল হাইওয়ে একদম ব্লক জলে আটকে আছে এরকম তো আমরা এতদিন চাকরি করছি কোনোদিন এরকম দেখিনি আজকে জলের যে স্পিড तो अटके आची चेष्टा করছিলাম একটু যেতে একটু গিয়ে আবার ফিরে এসেছি
कई जगहों पे रिलीफ कैंप शुरू किए गए हैं और एसडीआरएफ की टीम की मदद से इवैक्यूएशन भी चल रहे हैं एटलीस्ट 9 जगहों पे रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन चल रहे हैं जिसमें बोट्स का भी इस्तेमाल किया जा रहा है
Bangladesh has accused India of causing the disaster by releasing water from a river dam, though India has denied these claims. The monsoon rains have brought devastation across South Asia, and the struggle to recover is just beginning. India and Bangladesh share 54 common rivers that flow from the Himalayas to the Bay of Bengal. Flood waters have stranded hundreds of thousands of people in India's northeast and neighboring Bangladesh's eastern region, causing at least 15 deaths. With water levels still rising, the situation remains critical for those affected.
And here's an exclusive for Republic TV. India is currently undergoing rapid transformation and experiencing substantial progress across all sectors. This incredible change has been fueled by dedicated individuals working at the grassroots level, making a profound impact on the lives of millions of people every day. Republic TV is proud to acknowledge and commemorate these selfless individuals who have made extraordinary contributions in 5 distinct categories. Join us for the prestigious event Heroes of Change Awards 2024, presented by Ravin exclusively on Republic TV.
The Central Bureau of Investigation is going to perform polygraph test, which is the lie detector test on Sanjay Roy, the prime accused of Kolkata rape case, while also 4 others will be questioned in the lie detector test.
Trouble continues for Byju's as the Supreme Court has denied a stay on the Committee of Creditors' meeting, allowing the insolvency proceedings against the EdTech giant to move forward. The court rejected Byju's appeal, which argued the formation of the committee was unfair and lacked prior approval.
Trouble mounts for Byju's as the Supreme Court has refused to stay the Committee of Creditors meeting. This paves the way for the continued insolvency proceedings against India's troubled EdTech giant. The Supreme Court dismissed the appeal made by senior advocate A.M. Singhvi, who represents Byju's. Singhvi argued that the Committee of Creditors was formed without the court's prior approval and described the process as unfair. He suggested that the COC could have been constituted with the court's consent the following day. Solicitor General of India, Tushar Mehta, also urged the bench to stay the COC meeting, expressing concerns that the current setup could lead to an imbalance of power in the proceedings. Meanwhile, Chief Justice of India, D.Y. Chandrachud, emphasized that the court's primary focus was to assess the merits of the lender's appeal before reaching a final decision. He stated that the thorough review of the appeal was necessary before making any further rulings. The proceeding against Byju's commenced following the National Company Law Tribunal's order on June 16th. after the EdTech firm defaulted on a rupees 158 crore payment to the Board of Control for Cricket in India related to sponsorship. As the proceedings continue, the future of Byju's remains uncertain, with the court's decision potentially shaping the outcome of this high-profile insolvency case.
And Prime Minister Modi is walking a diplomatic tightrope as he is set to visit Ukraine today. It's going to be a brief, focused 7-hour visit to Ukraine, during which he will hold one-on-one talks with his counterpart, President Zelensky. Not just that, the visit is significant given that it remains to be seen whether India manages to play the role of a mediator in the Russia-Ukraine war that rages on for over 2 years now.
After Prime Minister Narendra Modi's recent visit to Poland, he is all set to meet Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. Modi's visit to Ukraine is primarily aimed at facilitating peace talks, reflecting India's push for a resolution amidst escalating tensions. His recent call for a return to peace highlights the urgency of his mission as he prepares for this significant engagement in Ukraine. With the war intensifying, Modi's stance remains clear. This is not the time for war. India has long been a proponent of peace, and Modi's current efforts align with this enduring commitment. During his visit to Poland, the Prime Minister once again emphasized the need for peace amidst the ongoing conflict.
साथियों, भारत बुद्ध की विरासत वाली धरती है। और जब बुद्ध की बात आती है तो जो युद्ध नहीं, शांति पर विश्वास करती है। और इसलिए भारत इस रीजन में भी स्थायी शांति का एक बड़ा पैरोकार है। भारत का मत एकदम साफ है, ये युद्ध का युग नहीं है।
This message was reinforced during his visit to Russia, where he directly urged President Vladimir Putin, saying, "Today's era is not of war."
एक्सेलेंसी, एक मित्र के नाते मैंने हमेशा कहा है कि हमारी भावी पीढ़ी के उज्जवल भविष्य के लिए शांति सर्वाधिक आवश्यक है। लेकिन मैं ये भी जानता हूं कि युद्ध के मैदान में समाधान संभव नहीं होते। बम, बंदूक और गोलियों के बीच समाधान और शांति वार्ताएं सफल नहीं होती हैं और हमने वार्ता के माध्यम से ही शांति के रास्ते अपनाने होंगे।
India's foreign policy, rooted in promoting global peace, continues to garner respect on the international stage. Let's not forget, 2 years ago, in his address to the US Congress, Modi reiterated the need for peace in times of global unrest.
As I have said directly and publicly, this is not an era of war. But it is one of dialogue and diplomacy. And we all must do what we can to stop the bloodshed and human suffering. Countries of the global south have been particularly affected. The global order is based on the respect for the principle of the UN Charter. Peaceful resolution of disputes and respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity.
As Modi's diplomatic endeavors progress, they could be pivotal in shaping future negotiations and reinforcing India's role as a global leader.
And joining us on the broadcast is Arnab Goswami, foreign affairs expert. A very good morning to you. A pointed question, do you think a resolution is in sight before Ukraine essentially joins the NATO? One, and what do you think is going to be India's role? Do you think Prime Minister can play the role of a mediator between Russia and Ukraine? Because so far this has essentially not happened in the last 2 years. All right, we'll just try and connect with Mr. Bansal. There seems to be...
I just wanted to say that the basic purpose of Prime Minister's visit to Ukraine is to broker a peace between the two warring sides. And I think today, both the sides realize that India could be an honest broker. And both sides are actually suffering the consequences of this long-drawn conflict. Both Russia and Ukraine are facing the crunch and would like to come to a peaceful solution. But they want a fig leaf to give them a veneer of respectability where they feel that they have actually not backed down. And India has to offer that solution. I think Prime Minister spoke to President Putin 6 weeks ago. He was in Russia. He has met President Zelensky since then, and he's actually now heading to Ukraine. So there should be something. However, it will take a long time. Please understand, because he has heard what the Russians want. Now he will probably listen what the Ukrainians want. And then it will take some amount of negotiations to bring the two sides to a position which is common. It's not going to be easy, but it is definitely something which we must attempt. India has, in the 50s, tried to broker peaceful solutions between Vietnam and Korea. Unfortunately, after the 50s, we have gone into a foreign policy which was isolationist, which did not want to take initiative. It was more reactive rather than proactive. Now, this approach of Prime Minister Modi is immensely praiseworthy, and actually it will position India on the global arena as a firm and a very, very important player on the global issues, irrespective of what happens. And yes, I think that's very, very nice, and I think that's the right approach to take.
All right, Mr. Bansal, needless to say, it's a diplomatic tightrope for the country. We will have to leave it at that. Appreciate you speaking to us and joining us on the broadcast. For now, let's cut across to US Vice President Kamala Harris, who's speaking at the Democratic National Convention.
A trail about it. That was my mother. And she taught us, and she also taught us, and never do anything half-assed. And that is a direct quote. A direct quote. I grew up immersed in the ideals of the civil rights movement. My parents had met at a civil rights gathering, and they made sure that we learned about civil rights leaders, including the lawyers like Thurgood Marshall and Constance Baker Motley, those who battled in the courtroom to make real the promise of America. So at a young age, I decided I wanted to do that work. I wanted to be a lawyer. And when it came time to choose the type of law I would pursue, I was on a pivotal moment in my life. You see, when I was in high school, I started to notice something about my best friend, Wanda. She was sad at school, and there were times she didn't want to go home. So one day I asked if everything was all right, and she confided in me that she was being sexually abused by her stepfather. And I immediately told her she had to come stay with us, and she did. This is one of the reasons I became a prosecutor, to protect people like Wanda, because I believe everyone has a right to safety, to dignity, and to justice. As a prosecutor, when I had a case, I charged it not in the name of the victim, but in the name of the people. For a simple reason. In our system of justice, A harm against any one of us is a harm against all of us. And I would often explain this to console survivors of crime, to remind them no one should be made to fight alone. We are all in this together. And every day in the courtroom, I stood proudly before a judge and I said 5 words: Kamala Harris for the people. And to be clear, my entire career, I've only had one client, the people. And so, on behalf of the people, on behalf of every American, regardless of party, race, gender, or the language your grandmother speaks, on behalf of my mother and everyone who has ever set out on their own unlikely journey, on behalf of Americans like the people I grew up with, people who work hard, chase their dreams, and look out for one another, on behalf of everyone whose story could only be written in the greatest nation on earth, I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America. And with this election, our nation with this election has a precious, fleeting opportunity to move past the bitterness, cynicism, and divisive battles of the past, a chance to chart a new way forward. Not as members of any one party or faction, but as Americans. And let me say, I know there are people of various political views watching tonight, and I want you to know, I promise to be a president for all Americans. You can always trust me to put country above party and self, to hold sacred America's fundamental principles, from the rule of law to free and fair elections to the peaceful transfer of power. I will be a president who unites us around our highest aspirations, a president who leads and listens, who is realistic, practical, and has common sense, and always fights for the American people. From the courthouse to the White House, that has been my life's work. As a young courtroom prosecutor in Oakland, California, I stood up for women and children against predators who abuse them. As Attorney General of California, I took on the big banks, delivered $20 billion for middle-class families who faced foreclosure, and helped pass a homeowner bill of rights, one of the first of its kind in the nation. I stood up for veterans and students being scammed by big for-profit colleges, for workers who are being cheated out of their wages, the wages they were due, facing elder abuse. I fought against the cartels who traffic in guns and drugs and human beings, who threaten the security of our border and the safety of our communities. And I will tell you, these fights were not easy, and neither were the elections that put me in those offices. We were underestimated at practically every turn. But we never gave up, because the future is always worth fighting for. And that's the fight we are in right now, a fight for America's future. Fellow Americans, this election is not only the most important of our lives, it is one of the most important in the life of our nation. In many ways, Donald Trump is an unserious man. But the consequences of putting Donald Trump back in the White House are extremely serious. Consider not only the chaos and calamity when he was in office, but also the gravity of what has happened since he lost the last election. Donald Trump tried to throw away your votes. When he failed, he sent an armed mob to the United States Capitol, where they assaulted law enforcement officers. When politicians in his own party begged him to call off the mob and send help, he did the opposite. He fanned the flames. And now, for an entirely different set of crimes, he was found guilty of fraud by a jury of everyday Americans and separately found liable for committing sexual abuse. And consider what he intends to do if we give him power again. Consider his explicit intent to set free violent extremists who assaulted those law enforcement officers at the Capitol. His explicit intent to jail journalists, political opponents, and anyone he sees as the enemy. His explicit intent to deploy our active duty military against our own citizens. Consider the power he will have, especially after the United States Supreme Court just ruled that he would be immune from criminal prosecution. Just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails, and how he would use the immense powers of the presidency of the United States, not to improve your life, not to strengthen our national security, but to serve the only client he has ever had, himself. And we know what a second Trump term would look like. It's all laid out in Project 2025, written by his closest advisors, and its sum total is to pull our country back to the past. But America, we are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back to when Donald Trump tried to cut Social Security and Medicare. We are not going going back to when he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, when insurance companies could deny people with pre-existing conditions. We are not going to let him eliminate the Department of Education that funds our public schools. We are not going to let him end programs like Head Start that provide preschool and childcare for our children. America, we are not going back. And we are charting a new way forward. Forward to a future with a strong and growing middle class, because we know a strong middle class has always been critical to America's success. And building that middle class will be a defining goal of my presidency. And I'll tell you, this is personal for me. The middle class is where I come from. My mother kept a strict budget. We lived within our means, yet we wanted for little. And she expected us to make the most of the opportunities that were available to us and to be grateful for them. Because, as she taught us, opportunity is not available to everyone. That's why we will create what I call an opportunity economy where everyone has the chance to compete and a chance to succeed. Whether you live in a rural area, small town, or big city. And as president, I will bring together labor and workers and small business owners and entrepreneurs and American companies to create jobs, to grow our economy, and to lower the cost of everyday needs like health care and housing and groceries. We will provide access to capital for small business owners and entrepreneurs and founders. And we will end America's housing shortage and protect Social Security and Medicare. Now compare that to Donald Trump, because I think everyone here knows he doesn't actually fight for the middle class. He doesn't actually fight for the middle class. Instead, he fights for himself and his billionaire friends. And he will give them another round of tax breaks that will add up to $5 trillion to the national debt. And all the while, he intends to enact what in effect is a national sales tax, call it a Trump tax, that would raise prices on middle-class families by almost $4,000 a year. Well, instead of a Trump tax hike, we will pass a middle-class tax cut that will benefit more than 100 million Americans. Friends, I believe America cannot truly be prosperous unless Americans are fully able to make their own decisions about their own lives, especially on matters of heart and home. But tonight, in America, too many women are not able to make those decisions. And let's be clear about how we got here. Donald Trump handpicked members of the United States Supreme Court to take away reproductive freedom. And now he brags about it. In his words, quote, "I did it and I'm proud to have done it," end quote. Well, I'll tell you, over the past 2 years, I've traveled across our country, and women have told me their stories. Husbands and fathers have shared theirs. Stories of women miscarrying in a parking lot, developing sepsis, losing the ability to ever again have children, all because doctors are afraid they may go to jail for caring for their patients. Couples just trying to grow their family.
And we begin with our top story this morning. After concluding his power-packed two-day visit to Poland, Prime Minister Modi is all set to travel to Kiev, the Ukraine capital city. In fact, during his 7-hour stay in Kiev, Prime Minister Modi will hold talks with President Zelensky and even hold delegation-level talks. A very significant visit, given that this is the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister in 30 years. We have Patikret Pen and Robinder Sachdeva joining us on the broadcast. A very good morning to you both. Let's begin with Patikret Pen also, who's joining us. I believe he's joined us live right now. Patikret Pen, the first very obvious question: how do you see India's role going forward? Do you think India can play the role of a mediator, given that the mediation hasn't happened for the last 2 years between Ukraine and Russia?
Good morning. First of all, my surname is Pine, not Payne. Secondly, yes, these are difficult times. It's a very crucial visit of Prime Minister Modi. India is trying its best in terms of sending out the message that this is not an era of war. But whether the mediation happens or not depends on both the sides. We must remember this is not a war which is happening between Russia and Ukraine. This is a war which is happening between Russia and NATO. So I don't think there is too much leverage in the hand of Zelensky on his own to stop the war. We must remember in 2022, when the war started, barely a few days after that, there were initiatives taken by both Russia and Ukraine to go for a ceasefire. Unfortunately, that was stopped by certain major powerhouses in the Western hemisphere. So this visit is crucial from many aspects, including the fact that there are very critical warships that India has of Russian origin, whose engines essentially for a long time had been coming from Ukraine, especially from a company called Zoria Marsh Proact. Also, there are major aircrafts in Indian Air Force, like the AN-32, whose origin has been in Ukraine. So its overhaul repair is also a critical aspect and upgradation. So from India's perspective, to sending out a message of strategic autonomy and to say that we are essentially on the side of peace and negotiation, and we believe in chunking the whole concept of war, I think it's a great move ahead. But whether it would lead to any kind of negotiation, whether it would lead to a situation where the war stops, I have my own doubts, because I still believe that war has barely started escalating, and by the next 2 years it's going to be even more worse than what it is today. However, from India's perspective, considering the fact that India is also the voice of the global South today, any kind of conflict situation or sanctions associated with it does lead to a situation where the prices of critical commodities go up. And essentially, as a result of that, smaller countries, developing countries suffer. India is doing its part. Whether it leads to negotiations or stoppage of war, that's another issue we have to wait and watch.
Yes, Mr. Pen, let's take the same point across to Robinder Sachdeva also. Mr. Sachdeva, do you think that either Russia or Ukraine could give up the disputed territories before Ukraine essentially becomes a part of the NATO? And what do you think is going to be the role of US when it comes to not just the military support, but handling the diplomatic situation between Russia and Ukraine?
Thank you so much. Good morning to you and the viewers. Nobody is going to give up any territory.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. They're very, not only slim, virtually zero chances if I were to go out and speculate, right? The role of US in the peace process, whenever it starts rolling, whatever it end up as, be it a ceasefire or a pause or a frozen war or an armistice, we just do not know. But the role of the US will be absolutely critical. I mean, there are essentially two players here, or let's say 2.5 players. Ukraine also counts what it wants, right? But essentially, it's America and Russia, and the half, I would say, is Ukraine. So that being there. Now, as far as India's role and this particular visit of Prime Minister Modi is concerned, I look at it as, it's like laying a foundation on two fronts. One, the foundation for participating in a peace process whenever that process unfolds. See, no one country alone will be able to bring about a resolution of this conflict. In fact, even America alone will not be able to. It will be a bunch of countries, 3-4 countries. Meetings will be held in separate world capitals, could be London, Switzerland, Turkey, maybe why not India also. There'll be a bunch of these kind of meetings going around and various, formulas tossed around before some kind of a resolution to this conflict will emerge. So right now, what India is positioned as, of course, as a voice of the middle path in the world, as a voice with a legacy of Gandhi, non-violence, and common sense. India is positioned in that sense, right? And a heavyweight in world affairs. So whenever the time comes, be it in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, when the peace discussions start, at that point of time, I do think that India's role will become one of the contributory or one of the participants in this entire process. So we are laying the foundation of that process. And the world is understanding that foundation, right? Now, one timeline with respect to this whole, the conflict, which would be, I would say, is the American elections of the president in January, when the elections, are concluded. If Donald Trump wins, he claims he'll stop it within 24 hours. We do not know. But even if Kamala Harris comes, there will be a revision of American foreign policy. So that could be some timeline to see. So around that time, or maybe spring, summer would be one. The second foundation, quickly, which we are laying in this is for business in the post-war construction of Ukraine. That will be a huge business. Over 800 billion to 1.3 trillion is the estimate by various financial institutions, the World Bank, that would be the money which would be needed for the reconstruction of Ukraine, roads, bridges, power plants, power projects, water plants, sanitation, everything has been shattered there. So that would be a huge business opportunity, if we were to say. So we are laying the foundation for participating in that business also.
Yes. Mr. Robinder Sachdeva and Patikrit Pen, we'll have to leave it at that. But all said and done, the question that is hovering on everybody's mind is what is exactly the end game of all this, given that hundreds and thousands of innocent lives have been lost in this ongoing conflict. Let's now switch focus to what's happening in the Middle East. The conflict between Israel and Hezbollah has intensified with a heavy shelling that was exchanged across the Israel-Lebanon border. In fact, villagers were caught in the crossfire as large plumes of smoke rose from the Qiyam town, heavily targeted by the Israeli forces.
Heavy shelling took place between Israeli forces and Hezbollah in villages along the Israeli-Lebanon border. Large plumes of smoke rose in Qiyam town following Israeli shelling. The town has been heavily targeted by Israeli forces. Hezbollah announced that in retaliation for Israeli strikes on southern villages, they targeted buildings used by Israeli soldiers in Metula with precise weaponry. The ongoing conflict has seen daily exchanges of fire for over 10 months amid Israel's war against Hamas. These clashes have resulted in over 500 fatalities in Lebanon. Around 100 civilians, 23 soldiers, and 26 civilians in Israel have died. The exchange of fire between Israel and Hezbollah continues to escalate, contributing to a mounting death toll and heightened tensions in the region.
Now, the first World Food Programme aid trucks have finally crossed into the embattled Dufka region of Sudan, which has brought much-needed critical relief to the communities on the brink of famine in the region. In fact, the border had been closed for 6 months' time by Sudan's governing council, which is led by top militant generals, which has forced the World Food Programme to use long and dangerous routes that cross battlefront lines and through areas that are currently controlled by the military groups.
In a massive relief to the war-torn and famine-struck region of Sudan, a convoy of World Food Programme aid trucks successfully crossed the Adar border from Chad into Sudan's Darfur region. For 6 months, this border remained closed under orders from Sudan's ruling military council, forcing humanitarian agencies to take perilous detours through conflict zones.
These trucks are the first in months to cross from Chad into Sudan at the Adre border post. And this is a very good news because this corridor is the easiest and the fastest for humanitarian aid to reach populations in critical need in Darfur.
Sudan has spiraled into chaos since April last year, when fighting erupted between the military and the rapid support forces. Over 25 million people, both within Sudan and those fleeing the conflict, are now on the brink of starvation. The United Nations reports that the brutal conflict has claimed over 14,000 lives and injured 33,000 more, though activists fear the true toll may be far higher. As aid finally reaches the desperate communities of Darfur, this relief brings a glimmer of hope in a nation torn apart by war. While the reopening of the Adre border marks a crucial breakthrough, the humanitarian crisis in Sudan is far from over. With millions still in need of urgent assistance, the world watches as Sudan teeters on the brink of famine.
Now, news from Pakistan. A Lahore court has extended the detention of a suspect who is accused of spreading misinformation that led to violent riots in UK earlier this month. This is the person, Farhan Asif, a freelance web developer who faces charges of cyber terrorism after allegedly sharing false information that inflamed tensions in the region and sparked attacks as well. The accused appeared in court on Thursday amid tight security measures which were in place, with the court granting an additional 4 days of custody for further questioning by the Federal Investigation Agency.
A Lahore court has decided to extend the detention of Farhan Asif, a 32-year-old freelance web developer. Asif is at the center of a case that has drawn international attention after he allegedly spread misinformation leading to riots in the United Kingdom. The Federal Investigation Agency had requested a 2-week extension to question Asif. However, the court granted them only 4 days. The decision follows a previous court order that had already allowed the FIA to question Asif for 1 day. Rana Rizwan, Asif's lawyer, expressed frustration, stating that the court's decision was rushed and unlawful.
This case is about cybercrime. Our client Farhan Asif, which is charged under Section 9 and 10A of PICA Act 2016. Proceeding was very poor because in our absence, Judge Sahab given 4-day remand to FIA, which is very unlawful. Our client is very innocent and normal citizen of Pakistan. He unintentionally shared a tweet news of X account, which is channel of UK.
Asif was arrested from his house in Lahore and has been accused of sharing false information about a stabbing attack in northwest England. This misinformation claimed that the suspect in the attack was an asylum seeker, which further fueled attacks on a mosque. Asif remains in custody as investigations continue.
And in news from Bangladesh, flood waters have wrought havoc across northeastern India and eastern Bangladesh as well, which has left 15 people dead and thousands displaced as the water continues to rise. Rescuers are struggling to reach those in need. Take a look at this report, which has details of the situation in Bangladesh cities.
Relentless floodwaters have transformed villages into submerged wastelands. These are the visuals from Bangladesh. Sudden breach of a dam has sent torrents of water streaming through homes and fields, leaving destruction in its wake. Listen in to this villager from Habiganj describe the dire situation.
আমরা মানে কত ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত মধ্যে আছি ফুসলুতে মাছ আসছিল সব চলে গেছে বন্যার বাড়ির লোকে অনেক ঘর ঘর বিরত হয়ে গেছে গিয়া রাস্তাঘাট সব ছিঁড়িবিড়ি তস্ত হয়ে গেছে।
In another village, Noakhali, the story remains unchanged. People wade through the flood water. Their daily lives upended by the rising waters.
মহিলা রান্না বান্না করতে পারে না, এখন আমরা কি করেন কোনটা কমই যান। এখন অনেক লোক মনে করে বাসা বাড়ি ছাড়িয়ে দিয়ে মনে করে বাসা ভাড়া চলে যাইতেছে, পরিস্থিতি মনে করে ভয়াবহ খারাপ।
Rescue teams are navigating the treacherous conditions to assist those in need. Look how many try to salvage their belongings from inundated homes. Efforts are underway to provide aid, but the challenges are immense. Communication is cut off in many areas, complicating rescue efforts and leaving many stranded without help. Meanwhile, in India, India's Meteorological Department issued a red alert in Tripura, forcing authorities to announce a 2-day closure of schools after heavy rains inundated several regions, including the state's capital, Agartala.
कल पूरा दिन इतना बारिश हुआ, इस बारिश के कारण ये हमारा जो मेन रिवर है अगरतला का हावड़ा रिवर वो पूरा तरीके से भर गया है और ये ओवरफ्लो होके वो आसपास वाले इलाके को पूरा फ्लडेड कर दिया।
স্কুলের আমরা সব দাঁড়িয়ে আছি এখানে, যেতে পারছি না, ন্যাশনাল হাইওয়ে একদম ব্লক, জলে আটকে আছে। এরকম তো আমরা এতদিন চাকরি করছি কোনোদিন এরকম দেখিনি। আজকে জলের যে স্পিড, तो अटके आची चेष्टा करছিলাম একটু যেতে, একটু গিয়ে আবার ফিরে এসেছি।
कई जगहों पे रिलीफ कैंप शुरू किए गए हैं और एसडीआरएफ की टीम की मदद से इवैक्यूएशन भी चल रहे हैं। एटलीस्ट 9 जगहों पे रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन चल रहे हैं जिसमें बोट्स का भी इस्तेमाल किया जा रहा है।
Bangladesh has accused India of causing the disaster by releasing water from a river dam, though India has denied these claims. The monsoon rains have brought devastation across South Asia, and the struggle to recover is just beginning. India and Bangladesh share 54 common rivers that flow from the Himalayas to the Bay of Bengal. Flood waters have stranded hundreds of thousands of people in India's northeast and neighboring Bangladesh's eastern region, causing at least 15 deaths. With water levels still rising, the situation remains critical for those affected.
And in business news that we are tracking, trouble continues to mount for the Byju's as top court has denied a stay on the Committee of Creditors meeting, allowing insolvency proceedings against Byju's, the edtech giant, to move forward. In fact, the court even rejected Byju's appeal, which argued the formation of the committee which was unfair and lacked prior approval.
Trouble mounts for Byju's as the Supreme Court has refused to stay the Committee of Creditors meeting. This paves the way for the continued insolvency proceedings against India's troubled edtech giant. The Supreme Court dismissed the appeal made by senior advocate A.M. Singhvi, who represents Byju's. Singhvi argued that the Committee of Creditors was formed without the court's prior approval and described the process as unfair. He suggested that the COC could have been constituted with the court's consent the following day. Solicitor General of India, Tushar Mehta, also urged the bench to stay the COC meeting, expressing concerns that the current setup could lead to an imbalance of power in the proceedings. Meanwhile, Chief Justice of India, D.Y. Chandrachud, emphasized that the court's primary focus was to assess the merits of the lender's appeal before reaching a final decision. He stated that the thorough review of the appeal was necessary before making any further rulings. The proceeding against Byju's commenced following the National Company Law Tribunal's order on June 16th. After the edtech firm defaulted on a Rs 158 crore payment to the Board of Control for Cricket in India related to sponsorship. As the proceedings continue, the future of Byju's remains uncertain, with the court's decision potentially shaping the outcome of this high-profile insolvency case.
The Central Bureau of Investigation is going to perform polygraph test, which is the lie detector test on Sanjay Roy, the prime accused of Kolkata rape case, while also 4 others will be questioned in the lie detector test. We will be back with the minute-to-minute update. Stay tuned with Republic TV.